और इंग्लिश
Thank
सेशन
you so
स्टार्ट
much.
होने जा रहा है। सो अब यह मंच मैं डॉक्टर धनी सर को हैंड ओवर कर रही हूँ। ओवर टू यू सर।
Thank you, Dr. Deepamala and Dr. Arushi Tingan. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. This is the 1566th day of continuous webinar conducted by International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy. Today, our guest is Dr. Rashmi Shukla. Let us begin the session with 1 minute silent prayer. Thank you all. The International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy comprises of homeopathy lovers, students, and doctors, and we have 3 sessions every day. And today, our guest is Dr. Rashmi Shukla MD. She has presented 3 sessions, already 2 sessions in our English and 2 sessions in our Hindi webinars. And she is a person who was running a beautiful session called Homemade. She is the founder, CEO, which the purpose of the Homemade is to promote homeopathy, to educate homeopathy among doctors as well as students and those who are interested in studying homeopathy. And Dr. Rashmi Shukla has more than 16 years of clinical experience, and she has more than 12 years of teaching experience with her. And all in all, a very, very good session is going on here. And as you all know, that the International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy its aim is to promote homeopathy among public and educate our doctors to become better prescribers. And so a very important subject doctor has undertook here, and that is understanding and explaining futuristic homeopathy part 3. This is what we are doing. This is a very, very important session. Hope all of you will be here and you will promote homeopathy to the public in this way, what Dr. Rashmi Shukla is doing. Thank you all for joining the session, and we welcome all of you to the session. Now, I proudly welcome Dr. Rashmi Shukla to begin the session. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you so much, sir, once again, and thanks everyone over this platform who thought that I could contribute in some or the other way. And yes, I would like to contribute to my fullest, whatever. It's again a platform which actually inculcate and involves everyone very positively and very welcomingly. And that's why I love this platform, and I somehow anyhow make it up. Okay, I'm there whenever I am called upon. All right, so I'm trying to share my screen. Let me know if it is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, perfect. So, as far as the recap of the total summary of whatever we have discussed so far is concerned, we were churning over the facts that how homeopathy had been evolving, how our master evolved homeopathy very positively and actively, and now what are the expectations, because any and everything goes in relativity. There are references around us and we have to withstand with those references at par. Your survival is always fittest. That proverb is, again, it's not the fittest in the world, but it is fittest in that context. So if you see, if in a small fish tank, a bigger fish may be fittest, but in ocean the other big fish will be fittest. So it is always relevant, it is always context. Now, as I gave you example of the fish, like, from of a small tank and a ocean, so similarly we here take the context of historical milestones, that in what context there was a time when our master Hahnemann discovered homeopathy. It was much ahead of time. At that time there were no clinical diagnosis born. I think the system did not know what it name should be, what are its principle at all. Although there are little evolution, but I think still it continues to be empirical, the other systems, but homeopathy took up a charge of a leader, a torchbearer of that time, where it emphasize over the observation, it emphasized over the clinical understanding and clinical evaluation of patient, it emphasized over the diagnosis, it emphasized over the right evaluation and analysis of patient over certain norms, and it also emphasized over similar analysis and evaluation over the remedies that are to be given. So a complete holistic, most wonderful system that our master contributed, which I think was a challenge where people were struggling, like Brosius method, materia piccans, causa occasionalis, tolle causam are for favorite short notes of first year. So when people were struggling with various, how they should be, medically, how they should be making themselves fit to cope up with the condition given in the hand, Hahnemann was the one who actually scientifically put up that medicine can exist scientifically too. So I think the most credit as far as until date given is to Hippocrates, because he was the one who first in foremost, like father of medicine he is very rightly called, because he was the one in the decade of 336 is what I remember. That time he emphasized over observation. He has his that humorous therapy theory, but he somewhere tried to categorize and try to be more practical and scientific, like at least you observe the patient. But somehow later on everything got messed up, and there are various school of thought in the system came up, and things were like patient care and patient what we say relief took a back step. But proving yourself so important, and you are a true healer or true practitioner who is treating or curing patient, became the first part of the total system. So what I wanted you to emphasize or understand overall in this scenario is the first thing, that when medicine was evolving, when we study the history of human history of medicine, when medicine was evolving, it it there are certain systems that continue to evolve, continue to give explanation, continue to open and embrace whatever new is coming up. Of course, uh, the natural principles are the nature's law are eternal, constant, and because it has stood the test of time any which ways. But the second point that we must not forget at the same time, that explanation, every time the explanation, just now we had a wonderful explanation about uh, we keep on hearing various religion or cultures giving the several type of explanations. Just a second.
It's not moving. Still the question I first page itself.
Yeah. So the wonderful theories that we keep on hearing, that now our old ancient culture, the RO water evolution, then we understand that how RO is not so good, and then we understand, suppose for example nowadays consuming through copper vessel, then we understand the copper molecule what it does. So the explanation may not be there of utilizing certain things or having certain type of cultures, but somewhere intuitively our ancestors lay down certain systems, certain ways, certain methods. They did not have any logical explanations, but now you see the logical explanation is now we have got. So there are n number of examples, let's not get into it, but what I want to say is, similarly Hahnemann also laid down certain protocols and rules. He tried to explain it with whatever resources he was available with, but somehow those explanation always had a scope to evolve. For example, law of similia. Law of similia, aphorism number 26, the explanation that is read in the footnote. You see, as a student, I used to argue a lot with my teacher. Okay, sir, he said that, the loud cannons, noise cannons may the this army military people for, unable to hear the other militaries cry, and that's why. So I always used to argue that, brighter sun, brighter light, and lesser darkness, that kind of examples were there, and I used to say, okay, sir, no, if this has to explain that the strong, slight smell and strong smell, I said, but smell is still there. That explanation just doesn't tell that it is annihilating. That examples of similia does not tell that it is annihilating the cause, but it says that the stronger cause takes over. And then likewise he has also given, when two similar, but not so stronger, and similar and weaker, what happens in that situation. And that's one of the most amazing explanation nowadays, when we are able to see in our day-to-day practices. Certain things are still applicable, but we always have to be relevant, and we always have to be evolving, because now through this presentation we are talking about what would be happening in future. So the second thing, many times I speak just before my slides comes up. Do bear with me, and I'll say, okay, I have told you already. So these are so basically what we are trying to understand is, every time Hahnemann was a true scientist. Every time he used to study, he make sufficient statistical observation. Okay, now I have found 100 patients, I have practiced this style, and I have found this results. So Hahnemann was very strategic whenever it came to putting up the things into a most structured, logical, derived manner. So every after establishing the fact, putting down on paper, practicing the same, verifying and understanding the next evolution, and he was so open to evolve. He continuously, within, I think, 85 to 42 he completed, I think, in 20s, 20s, 19 before 19, I think last edition 1820. So within 15 to 20 years span, he wrote 6 edition of organon, and 2 or 3 edition of chronic diseases. So means that he was continuously evolving throughout by honest experimenting and statistical analysis. So this was the reason why Hahnemann had been always progressive, bringing up something new, something better, and he did not felt ashamed of discarding what he thought could be right but did not work, or did not consistently giving the results. The way, like posology, potencies, every time from decillion to centesimal to 50 millisimal, the potencies that kept on evolving, the repetition or posology rules, he kept on evolving only after the experimenting and verification of the fact. Now, my dear friends, this is the ground and enough reason that if we have to be a future medicine of a future, we have to hold the hands with present first. You cannot go jump directly from past to future. So you have to be relevant, we have to be incidental, we have to be explainable, we have to be rational, we have to sound scientific. We are scientific, we know, but we have to sound scientific too. And in front of whom? In front of students, in front of our next generation, that they should be trusting what homeopathy is saying all about. So Hahnemann, till 86 years of age, he kept on writing the editions. Basically, these last presentation itself, I asked the question that, do you feel that necessity of that further evolution is fulfilled? Now we don't need to evolve? No, as long as we are surviving, we are evolving. In fact, those who have watching me since last 3 episodes, so even I had evolved few days, few hours, with some knowledges, some inputs, some discards. So everyone, every second is evolving, the whole universe is evolving, everything is evolving. So knowledge should, so the input should, So the way we should be comprehending the things. So here, 6th edition of Organ and Hahnemann put up. So it's not the end. It has to continue. The other edition means I would rather appeal that now 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, or the further edition of Organ should come up. Now, initially when I try to put this idea up, everyone, like, some people were like very conservative over that. They said ki, how dare someone can think like this, the master was ultimate. Yes, he was ultimate, but his work was not. It has always the scope of evolution, and someone has to come up with all that daring and commitment that no, we have to really evolve this to most comprehensible present text, because this text is still there in the this thing, and very important. We call it as a manuscript. It's our Gita, it's our Bible. So if so, then there has to be additions, because ultimately there is always a scope of evolution. Principles will not change, but explanation will always have better explanations to comprehend. Now, what I think this slide last time also said that when a student comes out, have you seen, I think most of us might be from a big or good academic background. Yes, last time I had someone who just given a critical feedback over my presentation, principal of some institution. So there might be many academicians. So I want to ask one question to them. If we get a chance, we will definitely interact over it. Do you think that the kind of understanding our students are giving, why do they are so fascinated by joining allopathy hospital, joining besides salary, why they are so fascinated of joining those kind of institutions? Because they somewhere feel that clinically they are not at par, they have not understood how to examine. And last time I have give a very great not great but very elaborate discussion over why they feel inferior, because the OPDs, the IPDs, not I'm excluding those 10-15% of institution which are really having a good kind of OPDs or patients or real patients, but 85% of those institutions who are writing the fake case papers. So what kind of confidence we are generating in them? The explanation of, and it is said that don't take it personally, but by and large uh, it is said that in general, in common public also, not just in homeopath, I am also a professor, but by and large it is said that कि जिसका क्लिनिक नहीं चलता है, जिसको पेशेंट ज्यादा नहीं आता है, वो टीचिंग में जाता है. सो ऐसा बोलते थे. So but of course we do have again I think 40% of academician who are very very good clinician, but the proportion has to go high. The way if I know that we had from our Nagpur, we have one of the great clinician come academician. All of you must have heard his name, Dr. Sunil Parse. We really regret that he is not with us. Late Dr. Sunil Parse, he was one of those who had who had very good clinical practice, but he had very good hold over organon. So when this teacher tried to teach the organon, he will teach the real application of organon. जैसे कि Dr. Nagendra Babu sir is there on our application, he teach real application. Dr. A.K. Das sir has given a course, and soon his hospital is starting, so soon he is going to give or practical implication of the organon, like how bedside, how art of observation, not in book and it's in its aphorism, but over the patient live. So what I'm trying to tell is that the confidence in students will come when the teachers will be confident and competent. confidence come from competence. So we have to really focus over building right competence. So not just syllabus. I thank that a great academician from Nagpur, Dr. Ved Prakash Mishra himself has crafted this CBDC syllabus, which has been implemented and now accepted, and now this is being second batch of CBDC syllabus, where competency based dynamic curriculum. So competency based dynamic curriculum, we had a huge lecture over this. I might just circulate the link to, that what exactly the person who wrote word by word of his 1600 pages of draft of how CBDC syllabus should be, what it intends, how it has to be taught, everything, Dr. Ved Prakash Mishra sir from Nagpur itself. So he has crafted that CBDC concept. So this CBDC concept, if we start teaching student in most practical way, the students will be competent, then they will be confident. So there is definitely right now a level of a number of student that does exist who has short in confidence. The another reason is if they ask, because in organon itself there are a lot of criticism about allopathy. So fortunately now most of allopaths have accepted organon कि okay वो उस समय के लिए लिखा है, हमारे लिए थोड़ी लिखा है, हम थोड़ी ऐसा करते हैं because but now the things have turned another way. So I think that another introduction has to be written for the organon, more relevant introduction has to be written for the organon, and the coming edition needs to have better cover pages and better circumstantial thing. One more very highly revolutionary thing I would like to say is and it is not for homeopathy, it is not for organon, it is not for materia medica, it is for general medical sciences. If you see, most of the textbooks that we read or that we study and teach to our students, written by whom? Western writers. Almost everything. Apart from that, those small what we say notes, kind of anatomy, physiology, Harsh Mohan, these kind of small critic or whatever textbooks are like they are just the notes of the main source books. Like Robinson's has written pathology, Gray has written anatomy, Guyton has written physiology. I mean, correct me, because I don't see any relevant parallel original work in the basic medical sciences. I can't remember. If I'm short in knowledge, please update me in the end that madam you have not heard of this book. So what the point I want to raise is majority. If psychology, we are reading Morgan and King. So what is happening exactly? We are studying those books which are written on the basis of Western culture, environmental, social, emotional, ecological grounds. In Harrison, we read for medicine, we read Harrison. We have one API, that's good luck for us, but otherwise we have Harrison. So Harrison gives that this race has this percentage, that race has this probability, and this has this. How many Indian proportion he is actually narrating etiopathogenesis? No. How many of Indian etiologies he is narrating? No, because he's a Western author. He has written the thing according to what he has studied in his crowd, in his population. What we are doing, ओके गैस्ट्रिक अल्सर, हैरिसन ने लिखा है कि इन लोगों को ज्यादा से होता है और ये खाने से ज्यादा होता है. यहाँ पे तो सांबर मसाला खाते हैं हम लोग, इडली डोसा खाते हैं. सो अंडरस्टैंड दैट here we are studying the wrong source books altogether and trying to apply into the Indian genetics, Indian social and environmental and occupational criteria. We are applying something which is written in foreign context, and it's a huge drawback of complete medical education system in India. I raised this question lots of time. Indian source books has to come up with the original studies done in Indian continent, in Indian public, in Indian scenario, and that are subjected to regular revision. Every decade new edition of every book should come, because 10 years are sufficient time. Because now COVID, Harrison will now in his next this thing, he'll write COVID, but our organ and materia medica may not have COVID. We will say COVID like symptoms, arsenic has COVID like symptoms. Are COVID likho na. Fortunately repertory has evolved pretty well, and that has got good references as far as repertory is concerned, but most of source books are still continues to be ancient, continues to be primitive, continues to be not so relevant, because they are written and put up for yes, Western continents. For example, Herring has proven 100 plus drugs. Hahnemann has proven 100 drugs. How many original Indians have proven original? I do respect all the materia medica writer over here, but how many drugs originally symptomatologically written? There would be some researches also. I'm accepting that fact, but are we embracing those provings in our actual studies and application? Because there is a project in every college that they have to run that drug proving thing. But how many drug studies done over Indian population is been embraced as ki okay, pulsatilla patient chili nahi hot hai, aaj bhi confusion hai. ठीक है. So अब आप इमेजिन करिए इंडियन टेम्परेचर का चिली हॉट और यूरोप का चिली हॉट. व्हाट्स द रेलेवेंस? So there is a fundamental, मतलब क्या है? मतलब we are practicing the source book जिससे रेफरेंस लेके हम पेशेंट को दवा दे रहे हैं. मुझे तो कई बार वही समझ में नहीं आता कि अरे आर वी रियली गिविंग राइट मेडिसिन? इट्स ग्रेस ऑफ गॉड एंड सम इंसिडेंसेस दैट कोइंसिडेंसेस दैट इट इज कंटिन्यू. अरे पल्सेटिला का प्लांट इफ मैन्युफैक्चर्ड इन यूरोपियन कंट्री, वहां के जेनेटिकल से 200 साल बाद इवॉल्व नहीं हुआ होगा? Plant must have also undergone some genetic evolution and mutations. तो अलग symptoms नहीं देगा. When we are saying that homeopathy is genetics and homeopathy has got this and that, then pulsatilla का plant evolve नहीं हुआ होगा? Ophidia group का snake evolve नहीं हुआ होगा? हुआ होगा. तो मुझे ये कहने का है कि सार्कोड्स और नोजोड्स हम लोग यूज करते हैं. प्रूफ किए कि किधर? यूएस, यूके में और यूरोप में. प्रैक्टिस कहाँ कर रहे हैं? इंडिया में. बन कहाँ से रहा है? पता नहीं. हमें नहीं पता वो नोजोड कहाँ से आया, उसका सोर्स कहाँ से आया, मतलब एग्जैक्टली फर्स्ट जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी कहाँ से ला रही है ये ड्रग्स. So see, understand the standardization loopholes in homeopathic system of medicine. I also try to focus that in a whole medical science study, but now let us focus over homeopathy. So understand कहाँ से आ रहा है वो सार्कोड, कौन से जेनेटिक कॉम्पोजिशन से, कौन से रेस से आ रहा है, कहाँ से उसका सोर्स आया है, वी डोंट नो. So when we make such small things के 2 की जगह 3 अगर सकशन पड़ गया तो प्रॉपर्टी चेंज हो जाएगी. अरे पूरा का पूरा जेनेटिक्स चेंज हो गया. Understand कि Hahnemann was so critical while even giving एंटी क्लॉकवाइज, क्लॉकवाइज, इवन सकशन का तरीका भी अगर you have a back bounce, then the whole energy system gets distorted. Like these are kind of explanations. So if it is so fine, why are we ignoring such a gross ignorance of big genetic shift of the provers, of the patients, of the resource of drugs? Please note, I think I hope that my voice goes to the one who really can have some power or some position to change or address this issue. So, and that's the another level where we are also able to failing to give the queries. If an allopath sits and says, okay, बताओ natural dynamic vital force कैसे कर रही है काम तुम्हारी, बताओ, explain करो. हमारा बच्चा नहीं एक्सप्लेन कर पाएगा. लेकिन अगर हम उसको ये बता दें कि भाई जो वाइटल फोर्स का कॉन्सेप्ट है वो होम्योस्टेसिस से मेल खाता है. जो डायनेमिक इक्विलिब्रियम मेंटेन करने की, मेल खाता है, आई एम नॉट सेइंग सेम, ठीक है। सो डायनेमिक इक्विलिब्रियम मेंटेन करने का जो टोटल कोशिश है ऑफ द बॉडी is because of that equilibrium effort that vital force try to keep. What is that? That energy or that dynamis which is trying to keep what? That is homeostasis. That's one of the efforts, like harmonious equilibrium is homeostasis. So it is one of the function of vital force. So then from where it is coming, that homeostasis, from where it is coming? Then we go कि homeopathy is genetics. तो बताओ ना, proof करो कैसे homeopathy genetics पे. So yesterday, in last episode, I tried to tell about the Human Genome Project, the exact genes that are responsible for particular diseases or even infection. I have also told you, or I think I haven't told you that case when, and most of us might be knowing that highly infectious and inevitable diseases HIV is what we have understood. COVID to abhi aaya hai, but even genetic, it requires a genetic predisposition. I had one patient who married to HIV positive stage 4 patient. I don't know how they got into this thing, but she married to a stage 4 patient who was like continuously febrile and last stage. And when they started going to doctors and trying to conceive, then in her routine examination or investigation, the husband and wife, husband found to be HIV positive, wife found to be negative. And then they talked to me कि मतलब she was friend, sister of one of my patient. जैसे कि मैडम हमारे जवाई को, मतलब I knew कि she just got married and हमारे जवाई को HIV है, so मैडम ट्रीटमेंट दो. मैंने बोला ट्रीटमेंट उसका बाद में करेंगे, बड़ी लड़की पहले वापस लाएंगे. एंड जैसे क्यों मैम? बोले अरे पता नहीं क्या तुमको, HIV ऐसे से होता है. तो फिर देन आई टॉक टू गर्ल, गेव हर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बिकॉज शी वाज कंटिन्यूसली माय पेशेंट. सो I talked to her, gave her constitution. I took, I think 26 days later, yeah, it's been 2 months. Then she tested negative, and after I think 26 days, that hypersensitive test is done, and that was also negative. And now she's continues to be negative, and she's healthy right now. She's surviving. So what I want to say is, even HIV also, or every infection has got its genetic predisposition. You cannot get an infection until you are predisposed for it. So this understanding is why aren't we able to tell that this genetic constitution which is abnormal, what we say that that natural morbid reactions that are there in the individual out of his genetic predisposition. So what are we doing? I think I might have given you explanation that when we case taking, we try to catch the phenotype of the patient so that we understand genotype of the patient. So what is this? This is the constitution. This is the constitution that we are trying to understand. Then what is the whatever genetic mutation? Because Hahnemann was the first, even before Mendel's, to tell that diseases are hereditary. That means there are certain things that pass in generation. And I think before Mendel's, he was the one who gave the example that the things can pass on to generations. And of course he could not term the term genes, but he could have an idea that these things are hereditary. So what is hereditary? The only thing that makes things pass on hereditary is genes. So Hahnemann could conclude something around genes. So what is this then? What is that hereditary word where he has used? He has used in chronic diseases. So chronic diseases, iska matlab ki any aberration or abnormal genetic constitution is miasmatic constitution, based on the classification of their the structured symptoms. It is the classification of miasms wherever the individual fit in. But what it is reflecting? It is reflecting the internal essential nature of the disease. You remember those hashtag word, internal essential nature of the disease is something, is the genetic constitution that Hahnemann was hinting at. So this is the explanation, but this explanation I am giving to you, or I have heard, or I have studied, I have by my scientific father, scientist father. So I'm able to tell you, but our students should know that what is MISM exactly. So, and we should have great efforts of translating those miasmatic theories into most scientific and relevant context. So yeah, so still the question is unanswered, that why still we are stuck with 200 plus years, I think 210 years old manuscripts, which requires to be updated as far as the explanation are concerned. Please mind my words, not a single rule is been overruled by test of time. Hahnemann, our master Hahnemann, had any and everything explained well in place. The rules were well in place, and we can still explain them very nicely, except the explanations, because explanation needs evolution. So again, I am not able to understand why still we are not embracing the change or the improvement. So Hahnemann and most of the first generation homeopaths um, actually they just deferred, or they just were reluctant to give the clinical terminologies to diseases, because the other school was overdoing it. They were overdoing the diagnosis, materia picantolacosm, and clinical side they were overdoing, and they were not working over the therapeutic side. I do agree that because of this, it has got a great advantage that homeopathy, whenever the disease someone is not able to diagnose the exact diagnosis of the disease, still homeopathy has a solution. For example, even if you aspergillosis, if you are not able to diagnose the aspergillosis, that is a fungal lung infection, but still we have a medicine to treat it and cure it. But if the aspergillosis is not diagnosed, or the normal antibiotics will never work and cure that patient, because the diagnosis is not clear. So if the diagnosis is missed, then the patient is not going to get rid of or treated with the antibiotics. So this is the edge where we don't require, as far as if we are not able to diagnose it, but we do require diagnosis, and every one of us must agree that diagnosis is also required, but it is not mandatory to treat a patient. But when it comes to segregating the common and uncommon symptom of the diseases, we require diagnosis, so that we have that total exact portrait of the disease, and that is very relative. That is only according to, for example, a hypothyroid patient is there, and if she is not constipated, and rather she is having diarrhea or loose motion, then that becomes her individualizing symptoms of prescribing to part of the prescribing totality, because it is rare symptom. So this is something has to be even given more importance to. So that's where the diagnosis is important. But again, explaining those diagnoses, the diseases, the way Hahnemann explained the concept of disease will not stand. We have to have some evolved version or explanations. So are we, again, this again put up a big question over our mind, that are we really following, हम so called Hahnemannian बनेंगे कि हम तो Hahnemannian है, हम तो Hahnemann master है, he is a god to us. Yes, he is god to us, but are we really following him? Are we just following what he wrote? Are we really indeed following him? He had been continuously evolving till his death. Are we evolving? My big question to everyone. Again, yes, this point I have covered, that many of the facets of organon, I would rather say that if we subject the organon to a detailed review in modern context, I think the organon could be standing much ahead of what today's books are saying. But we need to really uncover. मैं आपको एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल बताती हूँ. It's a very signature example, and that is wonderful. For example, the just now I happened to just came across that reel. that fellow was explaining that why God Shri Krishna is connected with makhan, like why he used to eat makhan. So then he said that understand how that makhan or that butter is made. So in that ek handa, ek pot where the dahi is been kept, and then that is like done like this, और उसपे से उसको गोल कर उसमें से मक्खन निकलता है. So what he is saying now is इस सिस्टम को उल्टा कर दो. जब इस सिस्टम को उल्टा करोगे और वो जो पॉट है उसकी जगह पे अपना हेड समझो, एंड दैट जो डंडा है जो ऊपर नीचे आता है, दैट इज योर सांस, दैट इज योर ब्रीदिंग. So when you breathe in and breathe out, like you meditate, when you meditate, you discover many new and brilliant aspect of your mind and your reality. So that is makhan, that is evolution of that same compound into a better one, newer one, and premium one. So he was trying to tell that the signature has been established by making that makhan and consuming. Now Krishna is consuming, means with that dhyana, the higher awareness, when you come up, then you become that premium level where God will also love you. So that is his explanation. I'm just telling because just I wanted to tell that that concept can be explained with certain abstract thinking, that why it could be. So definitely here when we are talking about science, there cannot be multiple explanation. There has to be a rational and hard fact explanations, and that has to be into continuously evolving mode. So yes, we should not stop at the 6th edition of Organon, and that's why the way we have made Organon 6th edition as a full stop in the evolution of homeopathy, I would request everyone to make a comma so that the story continues, because now let us see the future. We may like or may not like, but this is the future. The future is the proportion of, now the number is even bad, but the proportion of homeopaths who are coming out after the degree, you see the proportion of homeopath who are actually practicing homeopath, like homeopathic students becoming actual homeopath, practicing homeopath, is hardly 5 to 10% who are like successfully practicing homeopathy, hardly. And it will decline more because people or students, because I think I need not to tell you guys what is happening. The students are not taking admissions in homeopathy colleges because there is no definitive growth plan. I have heard certain colleges in MP are having hardly 2 or 5 kind of admissions. Only those states are getting good admission where actually the by heart homeopathy is going good and teaching well, and the practice and the government acceptance and jobs are good. Their homeopathy and students in college and institutions are doing well. But or else where there is a frank permission to practice allopathy, there the college admissions are full. But the other states where there is no admission, no good quality homeopathic education exists, no definitive good career plan exists, the admission in homeopathy is declining. Mind this word, this is the fact. Since 2 to 3 years, the admissions in homeopathy has been declining. Overall medical field itself is declining because nowadays students don't want to work, study hard for 5.5 years and then 3.5 and 2.5 and then 3.5 and ruining whole life, like working like a donkey. This is what students talk about medical field in general. Then you understand why and with what passion the students will come to homeopathy. And it's I may sound very bitter, but it is the fact, sir. And it is a by and large fact. There could be someone from Chennai, someone from South, someone from Kolkata. They may have certain different opinions because they are seeing something different in their locality, but the global or the at least national, global, yes, globally so we are worse even. So national fact remains the same, that homeopathic students are not coming in homeopathy to become a homeopath. That's a harsh reality, but we have to accept this. And yes, most of them wants to practice allopathy, most of them wants to use this kind of, ignore the brand, but most of them wants to use this kind of patents as a shortcut to practice. And why, I have already told you. And certain wise, if I am missing out, we will be discussing it in our discussion segment. So if homeopathy, and now when you go to seminars, we go to webinar, we tell that we have got this kind of medicine and we are doing this kind of results and this thing and that thing, then the fact is that we are still failing in building up right IPTs, good IPTs, successful IPTs. We are still failing. Very good, very small number of institutions are successfully running their IPTs. So we really need to go to the roots. And right now I'm going to the roots and telling why this is happening. So IPTs are not getting successful, and let us accept this fact. And because we fail to evolve with the evolutionary process, there was a golden era in homeopathy in America. When at the time of Kent era, it was a golden, there were huge hospitals, huge asylums, and everything started happening. And I remember that specific turning point in history of homeopathy in the world, that the moment I think world's first medical practitioners association was formed by homeopaths, world's first. And that was the American Homeopathic Practitioners Association. I may be either udhar, but that is the American Practitioners Association, Homeopathic Practitioners Association born. And definitely there was a lot of racism happening with homeopathic, practicing homeopathy, lot of hatred they were facing. So naturally they have to gather and come together to form a group for their safeguarding. And that was the first doctors association that was actually brought up by homeopaths of America. And in their competition, then allopaths started their association, and then that became a war. And of course homeopaths had lots of individuality, lots of differences of opinion, lots of roots, and lots of this thought, that time also. And then they could not stay united, and eventually they got eradicated. Now we see what is the situation of homeopathy as a system of medicine in America. We stand nowhere. We can't even put a hashtag doctor in front of us, and this is the state that we have gained. That's okay. Now we are talking about future. Now, are we really ready for the future? Because of so many factors, of course. One is lack of unity, second is lack of scientific explanation, third is lack of embracement of these scientific researches that had been taking place from various research. Because yes, CCRH is doing well, many institutions are doing good research and good inputs, but somewhere we are not able to embrace and inculcate the same in our coming generation. So, my dear friends, it's not the time to be really hopeless. There is still time, and there is always a time the moment you decide to start. What I wish, what everyone, if one dot is there, there is a full stop, game over. But here there are continuous dots. Means there are few more dots, means after that dot, okay, हमने 6th edition के बाद dot लगा दिया था, लेकिन let us put up more dots of evolution so that it symbolizes the continuity, that we are again going to get aligned with the what we say evolution. So the main idea is what I want to say to summarize, because now Dhanesh sir will be soon back. I have got 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. So the main idea is to update and upgrade the existing homeopathic philosophy. First of all, I'd like to say that the homeopathic philosophy, but homeopathic science also has to be, the terminology has to be promoted. New dimension of homeopathic study at the quantum physics, at the molecular, whatever the researches had been done, so that has to be embraced in the regular curriculum, that so that the students become confident. All the researches, good discoveries, good recoveries, publicized in common public media so that people know, okay, homeopathy में इसका भी इलाज है, homeopathy में इसका भी इलाज है, ये publicity होना चाहिए, so that whole basically जो है new dimension हमारा आना चाहिए education को लेकर. तो बेसिकली ऑल कंफ्यूजन होम्योपैथी और कॉमन पब्लिक के माइंड से भी एक साइंटिफिसिटी जैसे ही आएगी और उसका पब्लिसिटाइजेशन होगा, तो जो है कॉमन पब्लिक को भी होम्योपैथी पे अच्छा और अलग लेवल का विश्वास होने लगेगा. सो अभी व्हाट वी हैव डन इज वी हैव ट्राइड टू एस्टैब्लिश, सो वी हैव took one step 10 years 15 years back in 2009. That was the first 2010 11 12 it was the first edition of 2010 was the first edition when we released. That was the My Organon of Nanomedicine, and which was released 2 days after the release of IIT Mumbai study which demonstrated that in 2009 November 2010 November 2nd November 2010, where it has demonstrated that there are nanoparticles in homeopathic medicine, but the same script was copyright in May 2010. So which script? The book that we have published with Paris Publishers in the name of My Organon of Nanomedicine, Dr. Sani sir was there who wrote the preface to the book that was telling that how the things are as far as homeopathy and modern sciences, not modern medicine is concerned, how we can explain the homeopathic fundamental principle, word by word, aphorism by aphorism, and footnote by footnote. We have explained everything about the homeopathy and the modern sciences. We could explain the potentization, we could explain the individualization, chronic miasms, vital force. Everything is explainable in highly scientific way in the work My Organon of Nanomedicine. Now it has come up with the second edition, that is Preamble of Novel Homeopathy. I think this is the book, if you can see, Preamble of Novel Homeopathy. This was the latest released in March 2023 when in the hand of Union Minister, that this book has given and published by B. Jains. So this book again explains the next level understanding of homeopathic principles and its cardinal laws. What I want to say through while concluding over the fact that the substantiating the truth, what this work is meant for, that the homeopathy is determined upon most scientific facts is the final conclusion. The current scientific experiments are reproving the fact, but we should know that this has happened and this is how it has to be explained. To establish homeopathy as a scientific theoretically proven therapeutic system, we have worked hard, and I think it's been like 40 years, not 40, 35 years when Dr. S. Harriman has been writing over this book, studying various scriptures and correlating everything to put everything in place. This book is also meant to provide scientific basis of various terminologies used in homeopathy, which might be appearing elusive or groundless in current scenario, but same things we can explain in most scientific way. Basically, on the basis of most scientifically proven facts and substantial explanation of modus operandi. Very important, very important fact is modus operandi has been explained very well as far as the this book is concerned, that law of similia, because until we explain our modus operandi, homeopathy will not come out of the placebo therapy wala title. Vital force we have replaced or we have explained with the help of genetics. We have explained the susceptibility with immunity. Of course, there are bigger differences. Susceptibility is a wider term, but immunity is one of those facets of this thing. And miasms with the pathology, that pathology of homeopathy, many books even Stuart Close has written, but the miasms ka ek most balanced and genetic explanation based on Human Genome Project of USA. We have explained that why miasmatic constitution and the Human Genome Project, where it just is compilable. The invisible dynamics of homeopathic medicine, like how it works over the molecular medicinal memories and the other further advanced like quantum physics concept. We have explained everything. So now homeopathy has to be like, you know, better explained as immunopathy, because homeopathy ko uske terms par bhi, of course I'm not in mood of renaming homeopathy, but we are actually the best immunopathy or immunotherapy in the world, and we had been working since ages over it, over the same principle, time and again, proving that how good we are and how efficacious we had been. So to conclude with, the importance of evolution cannot be denied. The concrete base of homeopathy concepts and underlying disease process, individuality of the disease and actual cause of disease, that is modus operandi of homeopathic medicine, ultimately cure should be well explained in the modern light, modern scientific light. So homeopathic action has to be explained, homeopathic theory has to be explained, and practically complete understanding has to be given. Our mission is to take this revolution of knowledge, that is tsunami of knowledge, to next level. So we don't need a wave, we don't need wave to continue to be surviving in future. We need a knowledge tsunami taking place, and and that tsunami is not of destructive origin but has to be constructive, reforming the medical system altogether. We really need to come up with tsunami, my dear friends. With all fine people like you guys, the sun will shine and the good things definitely will come up. Dhanesh sir is back on the screen. So we are concluding this. For the betterment of homeopathy, betterment of humanity, we need to rise, rise, rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi Sharma Shukla. It's really very an excellent session. You talked about yes, what is homeopathy was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. What are the things to be done? What are the things not to be done? What are the things to be modified? What are the things to be eliminated? And how the fundamental thing that is building up new homeopaths in the homeopathic medical institutions. What are the things we need to do and what are the neat things we can do? Yes, we as homeopathic doctors together need to be united. As you told that the first homeopathic medical association was with the homeopathic doctors in America. So the same thing is happening here. We have lot of organization doing. I am the. We are the great. We are the great like that. But the international. That's the that is the basic difference between other organization and homeopathic. This international forum for promoting homeopathy. We comprises of homeopathy lovers, because without the lovers of homeopathy, no homeopathic propaganda can achieve the target of the becoming number one. That is what we are our aim. But unfortunately, as you point out in the first part in this lecture, that the most of the college doctors are in the North India or in some other part of India, but are doing practice in a different way. But but in Kerala, the things are entirely different. Not a single homeopathic doctor practices the so-called modern system, but all of them are having different level of practice and having very good practice also. We have more than 1,000 homeopathic dispensaries in government sector. If the government in other part of the states are also doing the same thing, definitely homeopathic students will be rushed into the medical colleges, and there will be more and more participant, more and more enthusiastic homeopathic doctors will be there. Thank you once again. I know there is no time for discussion, so I invite Dr. Manoj to say out of thanks to the session also.
Thank you, Dr. Dhanesh. One thing those present in the session must at least leave some time for discussions. You must remember all these things, because a lot of persons might have the brain to add, to give some inputs to you. Don't forget about that. You mentioned about the difficulties, the college courses. What is the basic problem is that the interview, the counseling is always second after MBBS course. So that is a major obstacle. You must remember that. Then again, there is no such studies courses as well as we don't have enough institutions. Then you mentioned about this American Homeopathy Institute. Its name was the Homeopathic Medical Society of New York just mentioned science of therapeutics of Dunham. So this kind of valuable information should be always be a part of the discussion. Don't forget about that. In the last session, I think I just remember you that time also. Anyway, nice presentation. You must come to the platform again and again. Thank you for the participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. This was the third part of the same presentation. That's why
Yes, I
we
know.
have to cut short the discussion because we want to conclude the session, the subject in this day also. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Rashmi Shukla, once again, and those who participate in the session. Hope you can present some of the some other papers in this English session in the coming months. And tomorrow we will have a session from Dr. Richa Thakur, and she will be talking about pediatrics and homeopathy. With that, we come to the end of the day, 1566. It is over to Dr. Mariamma John to moderate the Malayalam session. Thank you all.